In this video clip, you'll learn how to write a justification or an evaluation of the method that you used for the investigation. This is something that in NCEA, if you do it correctly, could get you an excellence mark. I'm just going to go over the real basics of it. There are more things that you could add, but this is just to give you a general idea. So, in a justification, you need to talk about the method that you used, including the choices that you made to increase the accuracy, and also explain how you ensured that your results were reliable. So we use the information that we wrote in the planning sheet, so this is why the planning sheet is important. So things such as the control variables, we have to talk about them. We also have to talk about the things that we did to make sure that we kept it accurate as much as possible. So to make life easy for ourselves, what I'm going to do is copy the control variables and, whoops, go back up, copy the control variables, and hopefully it'll let me the other variables. And I'm going to put them down in the box, and then we'll delete the parts that we don't need. So, we will get rid of those, because we're not so interested in them. Now these aren't enough by themselves, you can't just copy and paste these in, you do need to rewrite them as a paragraph answer. Merge those cells, there we go. Okay, so those are just there for us to look at. We'll put them in a different colour so that we don't get confused. Okay, so first of all, justifying the procedure that we used. So we'll start by saying something along the lines of, in our investigation, we made sure the results gathered were as reliable as possible by making sure the experiment was a fair test. To do this, we controlled some important variables. Firstly, we controlled the, and this is where we can put this one in, the amount of water used to boil. We used, because it was in the past now, we used 50 ml of water for each trial and at each height. Now, something that you have to do when you're justifying is explain what you did, but also why you did it. So the why you did it is really important. So we can get rid of that now because we've said how we did it, and we'll put in why we did it in red. So why we did this was because if we had used different amounts of water for each trial or height, we would have got different times because different times for boiling, more specific, because larger amounts of water would take more time to boil than smaller amounts. So we've said what we did, so what we did will make that green, and then why we did it. Back to black again. Another variable we controlled was the size of the beaker. We used, because it's in the past, a 100 ml beaker for each trial. So this is the what we did, and then the why we did it, we'll put in red. If we had used a larger beaker for a trial, it may have made the boil time shorter because the water would have been spread out more and therefore would have boiled faster. If we had used a smaller beaker, it may to black because we're just going to introduce an X point finally. Still in red. We controlled when we stopped the stopwatch at the boiling stage. We stopped the stopwatch when there were rolling bubbles, not just fizzy looking bubbles. So what we did in green, why we did it in red. Different people may have different ideas of when water is boiling by saying that boiling means rolling bubbles. This removes any human error associated with this. It also means that for each trial and each fight we made sure that we were doing the same thing. Okay, so again we've said what we did and why we did it. Okay, so that's the first part done. So we've said why we've ensured or how we've ensured reliability. Now we go on to the bits that we did to make sure it was accurate. So different colour, to make sure our results were accurate, we controlled bias and errors. For example, we tried to avoid parallax error by measuring using the ruler and measuring cylinder and looking at the values from eye level rather than above or below. We avoided human error by having the same person timing and also by defining what boiling means so that all people in the group had the same idea. We also avoided human error by carrying out each height trial 3 times. This meant we could average the results instead of relying only on one that may be incorrect. We also removed any odd data points, also known as outliers, and repeated trials where necessary. And because we did those things, this made the data more accurate. These things, avoiding error. Now we also missed out something here about meniscus, so we can put this in here. We read all liquid measurements by looking at the base of the meniscus. This meant was the same for each measurement and therefore more accurate. Okay, right, back down to here. So summing up, due to these things, avoiding parallax error you have explained in your justification the control variables, so what you did and why you did it for each of your control variables and how this made your experiment reliable and a fair test. And if you've talked about how you made your results accurate, such as controlling bias and errors, then you would have done enough to potentially get yourself an excellence.